Welcome to Mental Health Momentum, a Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm Dr. David Morgan. I'm a licensed psychologist and the director of mental health awareness here at Silicon Slopes. And on this podcast, we talk about mental health issues in business and beyond, and we look for solutions. I'm going to introduce my guest to you today. This is Nicole Davis. Hello, Nicole.
Hello.
So nice to have you here. Nicole and I chatted a little bit before where I learned a little bit about her. I'm going to tell you much more about her right now. Nicole is a brand strategist and marketing executive who has spent more than 2 decades helping technology companies and financial institutions build brands that grow with credibility. She is the founder of Inland Sea, where she advises founders, executives, and marketing leaders on positioning, brand strategy, and how to connect storytelling to real business outcomes. Nicole previously served as vice president of marketing and communications at Omni, held leadership roles at Mercado Partners, EY, and Thomas Arts. Her work focuses on a simple question many companies struggle to answer. How does brand actually drive growth? She helps organizations clarify their narrative, build trust with customers, and navigate a marketing landscape reshaped by AI, fragmented channels, and changing buyer behavior. Nicole was recognized as a Businesswoman of the Year by Utah Business and regularly moderates and participates in conversations about brand, marketing strategy, and the future of media. Well, welcome to the podcast. And congratulations on that honor, one of the Businesswomen of the Year. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was a while ago, back when I was amazing. But
So you just refined it since then? So if they held it again, you'd beat everyone out? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I'm pretty sure they would all whoop me soundly.
Well, amazing accomplishment regardless.
Thank you.
Well, and tell me about just your own experiences with mental health or your approach to that. You're very gracious to come on the podcast, and obviously it's a mental health podcast. So tell me a little bit about that.
I've thought a lot about this kind of getting ready for today. And I think when I first encountered the idea that there was mental health, I was probably about 14. And I was really struggling in high school. I started high school when I was 13. I was just this wee thing, and in a very strange land. It was like Ulysses, on the shores of all these random islands every time I switched classrooms. And so I just found it really challenging. And my mom started to see me suffer, see my happiness suffer. And she thought therapy would be great. So we started driving every week to Carlsbad. I grew up in Southern California. Okay. So we drive all the way up to Carlsbad to see this man who was like this mustachioed man with a Hawaiian shirt. And he was really cool and easygoing and, just this California dude. And he thought, let's solve all your problems. And I thought, man, this is the absolute opposite of the kind of person who can probably help me solve my problems. And it wasn't because he was unkind. It just, I was so young, I couldn't relate to really what he was trying to do. And I really didn't understand what was wrong with me being very clear that the system that I was in was not a healthy system. I didn't find high school to be a healthy system of growth and flourishing. It was not the center of human.
You and everybody else. Yeah, exactly.
I know lots of people love high school, but I found it to be diminishing and hostile and just generally sort of, I don't know, just a little bit ridiculous, to be honest. And it doesn't mean I thought the people were like that. I love people. I'm a huge people person, but I thought we were all in this environment where we weren't set up to succeed. I remember one day driving home and it suddenly occurred to me that we were paying for this. And I said to my mom, how much does this cost? And she said, it's $70 a session. And back then that was a lot.
I'll say, yeah.
That was a lot. And I said, $70 a session? Are you kidding? That's $280 a month, which was kind of unbelievable to me at the time. And I said to my mom, you know what? I've got an offer for you. How about if you give me $280 a month and I will be the most compliant, most joyful, most wonderful kid you've ever met. And of course, she didn't take me up on that offer, but she's not insane. You can't, I wasn't on the payroll. But it just, I think, was the first time I thought there are lots of ways to address behavior. And I'm not sure that I'm as messed up as we might imagine. I think everyone around me is pretty messed up. And I might be like the one trying to hold ground on some level and try to have integrity and try to actually stay centered and grounded within myself.
So she didn't take you up. You were short 280 every month, and so
this is where work suddenly entered the scene.
Well, and I love what you said, because you're right. There are many different solutions to our mental health challenges. Some people thrive in a therapeutic setting.
Mm-hmm.
Others, it's just really not their jam. And I think the key is, even in you were 13 at the time. So yeah, even in your 13-year-old brain, and you were thinking, okay, what can I do about this, right? I don't necessarily like the mustachioed Hawaiian guy in Carlsbad, but
he just had a Hawaiian shirt. He wasn't a real Hawaiian.
Okay, so even a fake Hawaiian, yeah, exactly.
He was like, I can't remember that show, but it was like, I can't remember. It doesn't matter, but yeah.
Just because that didn't work for you, then you said, well, what can I do for myself? And I love that approach, because I think that so often we feel overwhelmed by our mental health issues. We feel like there's nothing we can do about it, and we feel forced into situations. I did therapy for years in forensic settings where people came because they were told to come there by the courts.
Yeah.
And those were long sessions sometimes, because I'd say, what's wrong? And they'd say, nothing. I'm here because I don't want to go to jail this weekend.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to kind of help them figure out what they wanted to do to move forward and still stay in compliance with their parole and probation conditions. Anyway, the same sort of thing, though. Anytime we feel obligated to do something, it's much trickier to manage than if we feel like empowered to do it. And I think that that's some of the challenge that we're seeing in the workforce right now, is that too many people feel boxed in where they're at. And I think as we look for solutions, enterprise solutions and workforces, and say, what can we do to help people feel empowered? What can we do to help them feel like they're making a contribution? I think that's huge.
Yes.
Well, and like you mentioned in your bio, when you talk about just how things are shifting with AI and branding and how we reach people, and that, so social media is huge.
Yes.
Came around in our lifetime, right? And we remember when that first came around.
Yes.
And I imagine you've had to be on it quite a bit as a branding expert. What are your overall thoughts about it? Are you so you had to use it for professionally? Do you use it personally? How do you feel about it?
I've had a little bit of a journey with it, and I would say that today my opinion is that it's the worst part of being a marketing and PR person. It's not because social media itself isn't interesting and joyful and helps people connect. It has a number of positive attributes, and I think we all know that. I think it's powerful in business, and I think it's powerful in storytelling. I think what's tricky about it, though, is this nefarious or darker side to it. This idea that what you're seeing and the types of voices that are being reinforced to you are all being manipulated in some way to cause what I would say is division, harm to people who, might not see themselves in the landscape of social media, might not see how they fit into the world, might feel compelled to, succumb to really, really dangerous beauty standards. And I think ultimately it's not, I don't think, a healthy place for people to live full time. I think it's like a cruise. You want to go there once every 5 years with your grandparents, but you don't want to live on a cruise ship. Yes. I don't think. I'm not sure that's the best place. I'm not sure you're connected enough to nature and reality and a diversity of human experiences. It's too narrow. And so my opinion is that it has all kinds of upside, but ultimately, if we could all get off, I'd be all for it. So, And I think AI is really interesting. You know, I have a boyfriend who is a professor. He teaches college, composition, English literature, all the writing classes, and all of that stuff is teaching you how to think.
Yeah.
It's all teaching you how to process your ideas, how to make the most of your imagination, how to communicate your ideas effectively to others. That training becomes fundamental for your life. And I think by creating, he, of course, is furious and finds it to be one of the greatest tragedies of our time. He watches kids use it. He watches how they use it. He has a front row seat to all of that change. Right. It's not the way it's used in business. It's different to some degree. I think it really breaks his heart. And he figures out each year, he recalculates how much effort he's going to put into fighting it. And he dials back on the effort he gives to fighting it every year.
Just because he views that as a losing battle?
Yeah, I think he views it as a losing battle. And so he wants to save as many kids as he can and kind of shake them awake and say you're cheating yourself out of everything beautiful inside of you and everything worthy of developing. All of your, you hear so much about critical thinking and all these other things. I have, of course, worked much more with AI because I work in corporate America and I've seen so many uses of it. I don't think all of them are positive, but I think what is dangerous or schizophrenic about it, and I'll use that gently, is this idea that we're all being encouraged and told that if we don't master AI, we're sort of invaluable.
Right.
And at the same point, when you're using all of these technology platforms that are required at work, there's all these warnings that all these flags, red flags, bells are going off. It looks like you're using AI. You might want to change that. You might want to update that. You might want to, it's like these shame flags are sort of, rising across your document that are saying, this sounds like an AI generated sentence. And you don't want to be caught using AI. You don't want it to be transparent that you're using AI. But if you don't figure out how to use AI successfully and also mask that you're using it, then you will not survive a future in work. So that's what I find interesting about it. It's like everybody's supposed to be this master at it, but it's also a master of disguising it.
Why the disguising?
I don't know why the disguising.
I mean, is it right? Are we?
I mean, these are all software tools programmed to let you know that you're showing your cards.
Like when I started using Microsoft Word and not a typewriter, I didn't have to disguise and say, well, I don't know if he used a typewriter for that. I think he may have used a word processor for that. Right.
Well, and I think it's because the AI generates writing. I mean, it generates text and content. And the way that it generates text and content, in most instances leans towards a sort of generic voice.
Right.
And I think that's what those detection softwares are checking. They're looking for structure, and they're even looking for, signs of perfection that you can't achieve constantly as a regular human.
Right.
It's, I mean, that's the thing that my boyfriend sees all the time in academia. He's seeing these kids, kids and young adults use the software, the AI software, and erase all of their the types of ideas that they might have at that age that are actually age appropriate.
Right.
That are actually all the stepping stones you take to develop develop mastery, to develop wisdom, to develop real usable, applicable intelligence. So
yeah, it's fascinating. I am intrigued on where we're going to be at 10 years with this, because it's so new and there's every use case possible right now. And I think what will happen is it'll be kind of like social media, the conversation we were having earlier, where at first, when Facebook first came out, oh my gosh, it was amazing. And at Farmville and all this stuff, and you could take care of your crops and all these things, all these, sneaky things designed to get us to use it. And we reconnected with people that we hadn't seen in years many times, which was wonderful.
Part was
that was amazing
for everyone, I think.
It really was. And then, but now, 20 years down the road, we're saying, oh, here's what it's really good at. Here's some things it's not so great at. And here's some
Yeah.
cases where it should probably never be used,
Yeah.
as we're starting to see with some of our younger youth and children, and saying, this is probably something they shouldn't even have their hands on until much later in life when their brains are able to handle it.
Yeah.
And and so I'm just curious where we'll be at in 10 years. I don't know. I think it'll follow a same pattern where we'll say AI is amazing for these things. It's good for these things and should be used kind of sparingly, and it's really bad for this. You should never use it for this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic about humans. And I think also this is a pendulum. The pendulum's going to
Yes.
swing way to one side, and then we're going to swing back, and we're going to settle in some place where we start to hopefully reach an equilibrium.
Yes.
And hopefully, we have some sort of, the earth is still healthy, the humans are still healthy, the robots have not,
Right.
the robot overlords haven't taken over,
Nature is amazing at establishing equilibrium, and humans are just as amazing at going to the extremes
That,
all the time.
Yeah.
We take it and we just go all the way, and then eventually we do find that kind of place in the middle
yeah.
where most things exist,
Yeah.
and it's a better spot to be in anyway. So, well, let's talk about mental health and kind of in business settings and stuff. So,
Yeah.
as you've worked with a lot of business leaders over the course of your life, and you've seen that mental health is becoming an increasingly, well, people are noticing it now that it's coming to work. And I think leaders are starting to recognize this is an issue that needs to be addressed because it is affecting productivity. It is affecting bottom line. And so how can companies create a good culture of that? How do they create that kind of supportive feeling that I think that will encourage people to be better employees?
I actually do think there are ways. So I'm optimistic about this. One of the best ways that I've seen work was when I worked at Ernst & Young, or what we call now today EY. I worked there about 13 years, and that place, I mean, no workplace is perfect by any measure, but the amount of training that you receive at Ernst & Young is the best, most thorough, most interesting training I've received ever in my professional life. So kudos to them for that. I think if you're watching this and you're a leader, training should be a major investment in the growth of your company. I think it changes everything when people are trained to feel competent, to feel like their skills are growing in the direction of the company's priorities, and that they're communicating well and they're getting along with each other. People at work want to do well, and I think they want to get along,
Yeah.
and I think they want to feel contented and competent, and they want a sense of autonomy and mastery and purpose. So if you think about work environments, they're really these systems, right? And the culture that you create is born from a system that you create around the types of conversations you allow and the type of vocabulary you provide people to talk about communication in ways that are effective. And it's not that they're non-confrontational, they become depersonalized. So people aren't maybe as prone to injury if you have great frameworks in place. So one of the best frameworks I've seen is one called TRACOM Social Styles. And you can just Google that or look that up. But it's basically a way of surveying all of the employees that work with you. So not just yourself, it's yourself and everyone who works around you. So almost like the reality of your communication style is borne out in those responses that your colleagues give. So then you get a report back that says, here is an aggregated, anonymized look at where your colleagues would place you on a grid of communication styles. How open are you, or how fixed are you, basically? How open-minded are you to new ideas, or how much are you more dedicated to traditional ideas? And then also, which style is your most dominant sort of style? And there are only 4. And you can have degrees of them, and you can be closer to center, but it's very much just a simple XY axis. And I think it created so much clarity and depersonalized the idea that any one of those styles couldn't be successful, that there was something preventing you in our organization from being successful. And they would put together grids of all the leadership, all the firm's leadership, globally, and say, these people are all these different social styles, and they're all succeeding in their own way, in their own, there's room for everybody's social style. And I think one of the most critical pieces is that in your social style, and I'll use myself as an example since I'm, since I'm here, is, you have four different styles. One is analytical, one is a driver, one is an expressive, and one is an amiable. And I fall into the amiable category. I tend to be really usually joyful to work with. I tend to love humor. I tend to love trying new things. I tend to bring people together. I like all different types of people, so I'm not very closed off to any new ideas or any person bringing up an idea. I'm not super hung up on my own power. I tend to view things democratically. And I think what is the most helpful is that my Achilles heel, or the way I cope in times of tension, is that I tend to acquiesce. So, I get a strange phone call and somebody wants me to go on a mental health podcast. And no matter how nervous I am, I say yes, because acquiescing is my default for dealing with tension. Like, should I, shouldn't I, the answer is yes. Of course. It sounds amazing. Like, I'd love to come. I've never seen one. Well, I think I'd maybe seen a couple, but, why not? Like, why not just jump and see where it takes me? But that yes can get you in a lot of trouble if you're saying yes to everything at work. And I've gotten myself in trouble by not having strong enough boundaries after work hours, or strong enough boundaries over the weekend. And that yesing myself or acquiescing to all demands as a form of loyalty, passion, dedication, can be a distortion. Like, I believe I'm being so dedicated and so helpful, and I just end up harming my own physical health. Usually is how it appears first. I'm overtired. I'm not performing at my best. I start to get sick, but then eventually that will turn into mental health as well, or I would say that they're probably hand in hand. Probably
happening at the same time, and you notice the physical health symptoms first.
Yes. Or you're willing to acknowledge the physical health symptoms first. You're like sadness, madness, whatever, but when you have a temperature, it makes itself known, So that's what I would say. And, it's great when your boss understands that, because then they see your yes as not only this great quality, but also this thing where they're like, are you sure? I think I've got too much on your plate.
Right.
And they can suddenly start to be an ally for your acquiescing, rather than somebody who's kind of piling on, knowing that when they get a no from everyone else on the team, they can always get a yes from you, but that's not actually health. That's actually something else maybe. And so I think those are the best things. I've also, one of the hardest coping mechanisms for me to deal with is from the personality called the expressive. And the expressive is usually such a great person to be around. They're talkative, they're happy, they have a voice at every table. They love the spotlight, they love all of that. But when they feel tense, they go on the attack. And my nervous system under attack, it knows it's not personal, but it's not my favorite. So, but I've learned so much about not taking that personally, because I know that that's just a person being tense. They're in their coping mechanism. It's no worse or better than any other coping mechanism morally. It might feel a little rough, but it's not about me. It's about them. And you really start to detach from that. And I think those kinds of systems where you all have a shared lexicon or shared vocabulary of how we think about our work styles, and you can even make a little bit of humorous jokes about it, and you can see yourself in that light a little more warmly. I think it just takes a lot of the pressure off of those interpersonal miscommunications, or even those moments when tension causes someone to act in a less than ideal way, and you can have empathy for them and know that it's their rough day, not yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that is massively helpful.
It sounds amazing. I love both ideas. The idea of the training, which I think increases competence, right? That feeling of personal competence, that we know what we're doing, we know we're contributing. I think that's amazing. And on top of that, taking the time to really get to know the people that you're working with, from, at a management level or at a leadership level, saying, what are, like you said, the people on the team, and you know that 7 of them are going to say no and one's going to say yes. You should probably know why that person says yes. Yeah. And yeah, I think it could be tricky. I mean, obviously you could spend, weeks getting to know someone, but like you're saying, there are tools out there that we can use that can, kind of distill that information into, easily digestible chunks. So then we can say, and while it doesn't, describe the entirety of a person, it at least gives you some direction on maybe what to say, what not to say, and all those things I think can go a long way in business relationships. And I think the bottom line, especially as Gen Z is entering the workforce in greater numbers, is relationships are going to be very important. Yeah. They're going to want to feel valued. They're going to want to feel like they're contributing, and not just, so many of us who for so long are like, well, I just go there to get my paycheck. And people still go there to get their paycheck, but I also think they have kind of a deeper desire for connection and to feel respected. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's something that maybe has been missing in the way we've run business for a long time. So
I agree with you that, I'm definitely like a team person. And I think being around all your team members when possible, even if it's virtual, which I have no beef with, although I prefer to be in an office just to be contrary. Sorry, everyone. I just find that the energy of the other humans is invigorating to me. And I don't think I'm actually an extrovert. I think it calls the introvert in me forth because I care so much about the other people. Yeah. So I think I emerge as a better version of myself when I'm around people that I care about and given the opportunity to guide them, to solve problems for them. And I think that goes back to a very simple definition of leadership that I've had for a long time, which is that when you see a leader coming towards you and you say to yourself, oh, gosh, here comes trouble, you know in your gut what that feels like. I mean, every person who's listening to this right now can imagine the person that feels like in their head right now, or maybe a couple, But when you see another type of leader coming towards you and you're like, oh, thank goodness, here comes help.
Right.
Here comes answers, here comes help, here comes an ally, here comes somebody who gives a bean about us. Those things are so miraculous in creating work cultures that are less stressful to people's mental health and physical health and health in general. And I think those are just such simple things you can do, is really understand, and be pretty willing to dig into this idea. Like, when people see me coming, do they think, oh no, or do they think, oh, thank goodness,
Right. Right. I love that.
And and that allows everyone to be a leader, right?
That's true.
Because everyone's walking towards someone at work, and you want to be perceived as like, oh, thank heavens, here comes Nicole. That's going to be so great. She'll figure it out for us. She'll help us sit down and not be so overwhelmed by this ginormous spreadsheet or this ginormous plan or whatever this thing is that feels like it's too big right now.
Well, if people want to learn more about Inland Sea, where can they go to learn more about you?
Oh, gosh. Well, I am just a baby at being an entrepreneur. This is like, I've been in this almost inadvertently for about 3 months. I have 2 clients and, taking more if anyone needs a client. And I don't have a website yet, so you can just find me on LinkedIn, I think is the best way. And just send me a DM. I can do a free sort of audit of your brand, and really we can dig into it, and I can let you know some of the initial things I see. But really, I think it starts with just a conversation. Yeah. What is your brand? What is your understanding of what a brand is? And how can that be really part of, not only your not only your employee and human flourishing at your work, but also growth. The
Right.
thing everyone really wants, which is what we're all here for anyways, is to help those businesses grow. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for visiting today
Yeah,
and
it's my
sharing your
pleasure.
insights. Thank you very, very
It
much.
was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thanks everyone for listening today. Remember that change starts with you, and together we can increase our mental health momentum.